Welcome to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcasts.
In this podcast, we'll talk about the regional dimension of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals and review challenges and opportunities to localize the goals. Stay with us.
The Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, were established in 2015 as part of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. They cover issues such as poverty, hunger, health and well-being, education, gender equality, environment and climate, strong institutions, peace and justice.
It's an international effort by both developed and developing countries to make this world a better place by balancing social, economic and environmental aspects of development.
Because of their universality and their broad character, successful implementation of the goals depends on the active involvement of all stakeholders, at all levels, from the international down to the local and across all sectors.
Implementing them is the responsibility of member states, but regions have a key role to play.
Yes, they do. It's estimated that achieving some 65% of the targets will require the active participation of regions and cities who have a hand in policies central to sustainable development. So how do they get involved?
Well, there's many ways to do that, from conducting studies and organizing events to integrating local reviews into national ones and producing fully fledged regional SDG strategies.
The SDG framework allows for flexibility in adapting the goals to the territorial context. For instance, within each goal, it's possible to select indicators monitoring specific challenges relevant to a given city or region.
Acting on the local and regional level can therefore support efforts at national level and give a better picture of how the goals are really being implemented.
The EU is fully committed to implementing the goals and to deliver on the 2030 Agenda through both its internal and external policies, from the Green Deal to the European Semester, which is the framework to coordinate member states' economic and budgetary policies.
And which, since 2019, includes tracking of sustainable development goals at EU level.
That's right. And let's not forget that the EU Statistical Office, Eurostat, has been monitoring progress on the goals since 2017 through a set of indicators adapted to the European context. But let's dig a bit deeper on the regional dimension. Stay with us.
Many EU countries have defined their sustainable development strategies, and some include a regional component, although ambition levels differ. Mayor Ricardo Rio follows this topic very closely within the Committee of the Regions.
If there is not a strong engagement by the local and regional authorities, most of the sustainable development goals won't be fulfilled. And therefore, it is important not only to stimulate the local voluntary assessment practices, but also to strengthen the capacity building and also to finance specific initiatives that may address this topic and that can be developed at the local and regional level.
The main challenges identified by local and regional authorities are lack of awareness, insufficient support, and lack of local capacities and trained staff, as well as prioritizing the SDGs over all other issues that also need addressing.
But despite these challenges, many European regions and cities have already integrated the SDGs in their policies and are actively working on them.
The Finnish city of Espoo, for instance, wants to be a forerunner and has committed to making the city financially, ecologically, socially and culturally sustainable by 2025.
That's impressive, but there are many other examples in the south, east and west of the EU. The Agenda Euskadi 2030 goes as far as to align the Basque government's programme with the UN goals.
Now, how do regions report progress on the goals? Here's Agnieszka Widuto from the European Parliamentary Research Service.
There are several channels. One is through the annual high-level political forum, which brings together countries to assess global progress on the goals and also features input from regions and cities. The UN has also set up a platform to share local experiences from around the world. It contains a sample toolbox and a selection of voluntary local reviews, with many examples coming from the EU.
To help local and regional authorities prepare these reviews, the European Commission's Joint Research Centre put at their disposal a handbook with a set of local indicators for each of the 17 goals. These are based on the UN and Eurostat indicators, with some additional ones adjusted to the local context.
For example, the share of women elected to local councils, newly planted trees, or access to public transport.
The European Parliament is a firm supporter in the localisation of the Sustainable Development Goals. In June this year, it called for a new high-level SDG implementation strategy, a plan to finance the goals and more actions to strengthen multilateral cooperation. Let's hear the Parliament's rapporteur, Petros Kokkalis.
The message is clear. We need a new and comprehensive EU implementation strategy to deliver the SDGs both internally and globally, with measurable targets to every global goal, to every target, indicators to monitor our progress and account towards our citizens about our progress.
In an older resolution from 2019, the Parliament had also called for a multi-level governance approach and the active participation of regional and local authorities in the implementation of the goals.
So, how can we expect the local and regional dimension of the goals to develop in the future? Time to look ahead.
Well, the combined impacts of the coronavirus pandemic and Russia's war in Ukraine will require intensified efforts to deliver on some of the goals. At the same time, as sustainability and climate issues gain prominence on the EU agenda, we are likely to see a renewed impetus to achieving the SDGs.
Efforts to localise the 2030 agenda and involve regional and local actors in the implementation of the goals are also likely to accelerate in the coming years. And as we've seen, there's no shortage of local initiatives to help achieve them.
Indeed. And over time, regional indicators may also become more comprehensive and standardized, which will make it easier to draw comparisons and share best practices.
Want to know more on this subject? Check out Agnieszka Widuto's full policy brief on the EPRS website or in our app.
This is a European Parliamentary Research Service podcast.
Thanks for listening.